Thank you all for joining us today for our Women's Philanthropy Board Roundtable, highlighting the work of the Hunger Solutions Institute.
Listen.
Mary Elizabeth Fukai, and I serve as Assistant Director of the Women's Philanthropy Board. And for any of you who might not be familiar with WPB, we are an educational outreach and fundraising arm of the College of Human Sciences at Auburn University. And this is our 13th virtual educational program that we have hosted since this spring. We've covered a whole range of topics, and we have even more exciting programs coming up very soon. We are delighted to have with us today Dr. Alicia Powers, who serves as the Managing Director for the Hunger Solutions Institute, which is housed in our very own College of Human Sciences. Alicia holds a PhD in Nutrition and Food Systems from the University of Southern Mississippi, as well as an MS and BS in Nutrition and Food Sciences from Auburn University. Prior to joining the Hunger Solutions Institute, she worked as an extension specialist and community health coordinator with the Alabama Extension System. And she also served as an associate professor of health sciences at Furman University. Alicia lives in Auburn with her husband and their 2 boys and their dog. And Alicia, thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you guys for the opportunity to be here. I'm going to take just a second and share my slides to make sure everything gets up. Pat, I see that you were able to jump in. Good. We can see you now. That's great. Although when I share my screen, I am not able to see any of you guys because I only have one screen, not the dual monitors. So I am happy for this to be very informal. So if you think of a question or insight and want to interject, please feel most welcome to interject. You are not interrupting. I definitely want, as we go through some of the statistics and as we go through some of our projects and programs, we're always open to hearing any questions you have or any feedback or connectivity that you might have. And before I get started and share my slides, I must acknowledge Harriet Giles being here. So Harriet and most of you know Dean June Hinton were the founders for Hunger Solutions Institute. So I am excited to have Harriet join us today, and I get to continue all that they were able to start, which has been such a fun ride. And every day keep them in the back of my mind to make sure I'm doing the best I can to fulfill all of their activities and legacy that they started and continue. And so we're excited to have Harriet. So Harriet, if you have any input, you're most welcome to jump in.
I could not be any happier with who has taken over leadership of the HSI. I mean, she is doing wonderful, and I was with June last night, and we're just so proud that you have taken the HSI to new heights, and we are glad we gave you a foundation to start on, but just love seeing you take it to new levels.
Well, thank you. That's great to hear. Well, we're excited to have you here today. And if you have any comments, you're most welcome to jump in. So I'm going to share my screen now. So I will not be able to see you guys. So if you need to catch my attention, a few of you are in this small area of my screen at the top. But if you need to catch my attention, just unmute and get my attention. That will be perfectly okay. So I do appreciate having the opportunity to talk today. As Harriet mentioned, this has been a longstanding Hunger Solutions Institute has been a longstanding institute in the College of Human Sciences. It dates back to 2004. And I so wish both June and Harriet were on because I love hearing the story of how it started. But I'll tell you, once I get to some of the outreach portion of what we're doing, Universities Fighting World Hunger is actually the starting point for Hunger Solutions Institute. And it was a happenstance conversation that June just could not let go. And she wrapped Harriet into it, and they both took off. And we all know what that results in the end. And so HSI is part of the College of Human Sciences here at Auburn. And I do get to fill some really big shoes in Harriet's past role as managing director, and have been in this role since her retirement. But was very, very fortunate for them to pull me over about a year before they retired. without telling me that their retirement was pending. But they pulled me over for about a year and provided as much insight as they could in that year. And I took it all in and really tried to honor and every day try to honor the legacy that they've set, but then also continue pushing forward to new heights, as Harriet mentioned. And so I did want to start out, as we talk about hunger, I just wanted to give you a glimpse into what hunger looks like. So at Hunger Solutions Institute, we focus on the totality of hunger at the global level, at the domestic or in the U.S. level, at the local level here in the state and our Lee and Russell surrounding communities, and then even on Auburn's campus. And so what I want to do initially is just to give you a glimpse of what that looks like, because it is 2020 and we are still talking about hunger, which means food is unavailable to a large portion of the global population. And so that is an oxymoron in the 21st century, and it's an irony that sometimes we have to grapple with in order to really understand. And so I'm a visual person, so I like to give you a visual to see. What you're looking at here is the hunger map from 2019. It's the most recent data that's been released. As you probably anticipate, we expect to see much darker colors in the hunger map of 2020 because of the COVID-19 pandemic and the ensuing repercussions it's had on almost every industry and economy. And so as you see here, there's more than 800 million people who do not get enough to eat on a daily basis. As you look at the map, you'll see darker colors represent a greater proportion of that country's population being hungry. And the lighter colors or the colder colors representing fewer percents or proportions of that country's population being hungry. And so I always like to be quiet for a minute and let you look at it. And so you'll see just a few areas where there are some deep pockets of hunger that have traditionally been present for a long period of time. And you'll see that they somewhat collect in certain areas together. So those are a few points to notice. If we move on to food insecurity in the U.S., I did not provide a map because I think the trend here is much more interesting. But before we even jump into the numbers, and I'll confess I am a true researcher, so I get really excited with numbers, so I'll try not to bore you today. But before we jump into those numbers, I want you to notice on the previous slide, I had the state of global hunger. And on this slide, I have food insecurity in the U.S. And those are different terms. A lot of times we like to use hunger and food insecurity synonymously, and they are not the same. Hunger focuses on caloric intake, whereas food insecurity focuses more on access and quality and sufficiency. And so what we talk about in the U.S. does look different than hunger globally. But we are talking about the U.S. in 2020, and we still have many people, including lots of children, who do not have food to eat every day. And so if you'll notice on this graph, we start at 2001 and progress across to 2019. I have a big surprise on, I think it's the next slide that shows a few months in 2020, and you will gasp at what you see as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. But I think we're all pretty aware of what happened around these years in the U.S. with the economy. And so we definitely noticed a spike in food insecurity across those years. What we are finally seeing since 2015 is a drop in the prevalence of food insecurity, but for a while, we did not fully recover from that 2007 recession. And so you see it both in the very low food insecurity and the low food insecurity. And so collectively in 2019, we saw about 15% of the US population being food insecure, which meant they could not access sufficient quality food. So it may be quality, it may be quantity, it may be both. And I'm going to click here. I'm not going to spend too much time here, but I do want to show you guys a few places where if you're interested in digging further into the topic, where you can go and get some more information. And I'm happy to share this information after with anyone who's interested. But I clicked on the Feeding America map, the Meal Gap. And it is an atlas of food insecurity in the US. And so as you see, as I scroll my mouse over, you can get food insecurity statistics for each state. You can get it, of course, for the country. And then once you click on a state, you can actually get it for each county. And so if you have interest in digging into the data, this is a great place to see it. But I also think this map, similar to the global map, provides a good overall idea of what areas of the country face food insecurity to a greater degree. And so as the counties are darker, they face a greater proportion of their population being food insecure. And please notice here, we're talking about a third of some counties' populations. Okay, so I'm going to go back and progress to the next slide. And here is that very humbling slide for those of us that work in the hunger space. And I know Harriet serves on the board for East Alabama Food Bank. And so I know these are not surprising numbers for most all of you, but they are alarming if you look at the significant increase. And so what you see here is a similar graph to what I just showed, but now we ended at 2018 and we're showing where we were in April of 2020. And notice that very, very large spike. Now, this is 1 month compared to a year for the others, so please notice that different time frame can influence the data. So I'll be anxious once 2020, I think we're all anxious for 2020 to end, but I'll be anxious to see the entire year's data once it does end so that we can better compare and contrast. But just of note, notice that 2008 spike and where we're sitting right now in 2020. So I think
can I interject one thing?
Of course.
Oh, well, it's timely when you talk about the spike because we had a Zoom board of directors meeting for the East Alabama Food Bank yesterday. And Martha Hink, our director, was noting that, I guess, say a year ago, our 7-county area, including Lee County, averaged about a little over 22% food insecurity. And now it is up to over 28%. So we really have seen a tremendous spike in just our own area, which I'm sure you know, but it brings it home when you hear those kind of numbers right here in our area.
Of course, yes. And you can see with those numbers that Harriet just mentioned, we're tracking very similarly to what the national trends are looking like too. So it is alarming and definitely something of those of us in this space are obviously have our pulse on to provide emergency food support through things like food banks and backpack programs and others, but also thinking about systems and environments and policies that may be adjusted in order to help alleviate hunger that resulted from COVID and even that has been maintained across time.
I am happy to say, though, just to interject one thing, that donations have been up too. And people in this community and surrounding, and I'm sure all over the country, have been so generous with their donations financially and with their food donations, but certainly financially. And so many people on Facebook will say, I'm having a birthday, give to the food banks, et cetera. So, you know, enough is never enough, but the generosity has been just overwhelming as I look at how much people have supported the food bank in this area.
That's great to hear because I know that wasn't the story in the very early days of the pandemic. Their need was super high and it was very difficult for people to provide volunteer hours and to provide other types of supports, or even if they had food, would people accept it, and how did you get it there? And so that's great to hear, Harriet. Really good to hear. So that's, I'm gonna stop the numbers there because I don't want to bore you. And goodness, we could talk all day about the maps and look at different counties and things. And so that's why I wanted to give you that link so you could jump in. But I want to talk about a little more positive things about what is Hunger Solutions Institute doing in order to address this and hopefully eradicate hunger and contribute to that on a daily basis. And so as you see here, this is our mission for HSI, is to convene, collaborate, and multiply best practices. And so we're able to do that in a multitude of ways, and I'm going to describe those to you today. But being in the College of Human Sciences and being a part of Auburn University, we always want to make sure that we are accomplishing and conducting this work in a way that aligns with the university's mission. And so most of us know that there are three cornerstones of Auburn's mission, which is instruction, research, and extension. And HSI has very conscientiously developed and will continue developing areas within all three of these to ensure that we're contributing to Auburn's accomplishment of the mission for a very important societal issue. And so looking first at what we do in the instruction area, we do have an undergraduate hunger studies minor. And so I had to refrain from becoming too professorial when we were going through those maps, because those are some of the stats that I opened that introductory class with. And so I do teach the intro class for the minor and the capstone class, which are the two anchor courses for the Hunger Studies minor. And in between, there are interdisciplinary courses that students take in order to receive that minor. And we've had tremendous participation in the introductory course and have maintained quite a few of them for the minor. Just for instance, in fall of 2019, we had 83 students enrolled in the introductory course, which is great. But when you're the one that teaches it, it's kind of hard and doing everything else. We do have an online component that Kate Thornton teaches, which is a tremendous help to address the volume. We also just this semester have launched a partnership with Human Development Family Sciences. Notice the name change, it's a new one. We are supporting a course instruction in the Health Equity Science Certificate. And so I am teaching a society and health course, which has been a joy. But it's also providing a very specific partnership between our institution and one of the academic departments here in the college, which is important for institutes, and I know Carey Center does it as well. It's important for us to make sure we're supporting the academic departments in our college. And I just, thanks to a WPB grant that I received this year, I was just able to launch the HSI Fellows Program, where I have a cohort of undergraduate students. We are going through a leadership development training together this semester and putting those newfound skills to play in projects here on campus and locally to influence hunger. And so we just launched last week. And so we're excited. I have a great group of very energetic students that we're excited to utilize. I also am able to support many interns from different academic departments throughout the College of Human Sciences and beyond. And have a specific partnership with the Nutrition, Dietetics, and Hospitality Management Department in providing preceptorship for their dietetic interns. So my background is nutrition, so I'm able to support them in getting some of their community and public health nutrition rotations. And so we're really trying to build out the minor and our partnership specifically with academic departments. Because as June and Harriet developed this, our entire mantra around the Hunger Solutions Institute is every discipline has a role to play. And so that becomes my mantra in helping at least our disciplines here in the College of Human Sciences see how they can play a role. But I also reach across many other colleges to do that too. As one of the outcomes from 2019, HSI has engaged more than 150 students in teaching and research activities, which has been a joy. I moved from teaching at Furman to straight outreach with extension, and I like the mix. So it's been a joy to get back into the classroom and to mentor some students through the research process. So we also have been building out our research support here on campus and beyond. Again, I try to always make sure within every area that HSI works that we work on all levels of hunger. We do that with instruction, we do that with research, and you'll see we do that with outreach. And that's just really important as we're one of the leaders in higher education around the hunger space. I think it's important for us to demonstrate the comprehensiveness in addressing hunger. And so we were able to get a pretty large grant to support our campus food insecurity work. We have been working a long time on Auburn's campus, and Kate Thornton was one that really launched that work as Harriet worked with Committee of 19 that became very popular and a very active student organization on campus and really pushed campus hunger as well. And so what we've tried to do we received an ECMC Foundation grant. It's a 2-year grant. It's $500,000. And we were able to build out what we've been doing here on Auburn's campus and support 10 other universities throughout the state in doing a similar process. And so I'm not going to bore you with the details, but we are working with coalitions on every campus, on 10 campuses in the state. And actually next week, I have a call with the Alabama Community College System where I will start working with all community college campuses in order to address campus food insecurity. We've recently hosted a webinar series of our own in conjunction with Alabama Commission on Higher Education, where we've been able to reach quite a few partners in the higher education world, but also many other colleges and universities here in the state. And then our plan is to, once we figure out what this process can look like, what we did at Auburn, can it work at other institutions, and how can we adapt? We plan on scaling it even further to U.S. campuses and international campuses. For local food insecurity, I have the good fortune of working with a local grocer who owns Wright's Market in Opelika. I'm sure many of you have heard of Jimmy Wright. He's a huge advocate in the Alabama Grocers Association and the National Grocers Association, and actually serves on their board. Have been working with him for quite some time to develop a comprehensive food security model where he can layer a couple of different opportunities to make healthy, fresh foods more affordable and accessible for communities who do not tend to have as easy access to those. And have just launched a partnership with Nourish here in Lee and Russell counties. Hornsby Farms and a local pediatrician, Katie Walter, have partnered to launch Nourish. I know they hosted one of the events last year, I believe. And so we're looking to build out that model to include more comprehensive health and more comprehensive food. And so looking to pull in different academic departments on campus, writing a few grants to get that up and going, and are actually partnering, we're excited to say, with the Harrison School of Pharmacy, with the Boykin Community Clinic that will be launched here in the city of Auburn, just next door to campus. And so it's going to be a tremendous opportunity for our students, for our faculty, and even for the community too. So we're excited about that. For the domestic food insecurity, I am co-chairing a working group with the executive director of Bread for the World Institute, as well as a systems expert from Texas A&M University for a zero hunger roadmap for the U.S. And so this is a huge undertaking, but we want to map a system that will get us to zero hunger here in the U.S. So we're looking at things like resilience and equity and health in order to address the domestic food insecurity issue. And then for international hunger, we have a strong partnership with the World Food Program. That's one of the ways we got started with Universities Fighting World Hunger, and we continue that long-time partnership. And we are actually supporting some research considering resilience during humanitarian aid provided by the World Food Program, so that instead of providing only emergency food aid, we are also able to uplift that community and provide sustainable best practices that will actually eradicate hunger instead of just addressing it in the short term. So we're really excited about that project, and some of our fellows are working on that project. So they're quite excited to jump into that and work alongside some WPB professionals. So in 2019, we did lead 8 research initiatives, and we're continuing those, but growing them. We garnered almost a little bit more than $500,000 across all of those. We were able to include 15 specific partners here on campus and beyond. And so really trying to grow the funding, but also the partnership base and the comprehensiveness of our research. And here's where we have historically been very, very active, and we continue to be active and continue to expand here as well. But this is where HSI got our start. And so we did start with Universities Fighting World Hunger. Quickly noticed that we needed, in addition to that student grassroots action, advocacy, and awareness campaign that Universities Fighting World Hunger provides to more than 300 campuses worldwide, we also needed a top-down approach with Presidents United to Solve Hunger, where those students had support from presidents on their campus to address hunger, whether it be on campus, locally, here in the U.S., or globally. And we have secured more than 110 signatories of university presidents and college presidents and chancellors and systems and all sorts of the different shapes and forms of leaders. And we have international, we have many continents and many countries represented as well. And so together, HSI has really been able to put the stake in the ground that we are one of the leaders in rallying higher education to be a vocal advocate for ending hunger in the 21st century. And so those are exciting groups to work with. Being a land grant, it was important, particularly as Harriet and June were pushing HSI off the ground. It was really important to have an inward focused outreach effort as well. And so we do have End Child Hunger in Alabama. The governor is our spokesperson. This group, Harriet, has rallied them for years, and they are still on board. You guys, we have quarterly meetings, and I'm always amazed at attendance. It is incredible. And the amount of work that this group collectively does is wonderful. And I'll tell you a little bit about that. Last year, we launched the Alabama Campus Coalition for Basic Needs. With that new funding, we were able to get around campus hunger. And then we also support Hunger Free Auburn University. We have a coalition here on campus that we support. And so all of these are networks or coalitions that we provide secretariat type functions, but also programmatic functions as well. So looking at UFWH, I mentioned just briefly, it is a student-focused network. We do have more than 300 chapters. Some of our activities, we have an annual summit. And if you want to feel young and get energized around hunger, this is the conference you want to go to. We move about across the U.S. when we're able to be in person, and we have different host universities. We are working with the University of California system this year, and I'm so sad to say it was going to be on UC Berkeley's campus, but it's going virtual, so I'm very sad. And we were scheduled to be at University of Kentucky in March of 2020, and within a week had to pivot to an online format. And so, of course, the students were fine with that. But we also have launched a lot of fall programming. And we have things like book clubs with major authors. We have a scholar in residence, Roger Thoreau, who is a past Wall Street journalist who's hosting book clubs of his books he's written in the hunger space. We have different chapter activities like Hoops for Hunger that are fundraisers. We're having a Farm Journal Foundation speaker series. We have an intense advocacy training. So we really try to provide a wide range of activities where the chapters can participate as they would like. Presidents United to Solve Hunger. I won't rehash what I talked about here, but we do target recruitment here to presidents of universities. Typically, we would attend the APLU, the Association of Public and Land Grant Universities, in September. October, November is usually when it is. It's online, so I am emailing them daily to see how I can exhibit at their online conference. I think they're tired of me asking, but that's the one place that we are really able to recruit and get our story out and really engage university leaders in prioritizing hunger as a cornerstone of the university setting. So to date, we've engaged more than 400 universities worldwide in either raising awareness, taking action, and or advocating to end hunger. So you can see that number is much bigger than our instruction and research numbers. And so we're keeping this going and actually building it out, but also want to spend some energy on building up the research and instruction arm too. I'm almost done, I promise, and I'm gonna answer any questions you guys have. Our End Child Hunger, if you check out our website at all for End Child Hunger, we do have a 5-year report that will take you through the successes that we realized over the first 5 years of End Child Hunger's activity. One of the most stellar accomplishments is Alabama's summer feeding program went to the naughty list with USDA to one of the model programs in about a 3-year period. And all kudos to Harriet for pulling the right people together at the right time and providing that right level of support to push, but not too much. And we actually, in a 2-year period, went from serving 1.65 million meals to 3 million meals during those summer months, which really, if you know anything about child hunger, those summer months make kids very nervous. And so it was really good to really be able to build that out. Also, we have a new project. As if things weren't crazy enough with COVID, trying to maintain all that we were doing, we said, let's launch a new project, as the Carey Center has done as well. We're all just a little, we have a little bit too much energy and want to do too many things at one time. But we have launched what's called the Etcha County Food Resource Guide Project. And if you go to our website, you'll find to the End Child Hunger in Alabama website, you'll find a state map that is clickable. And if you click on the county, it has every food resource in that county available in one place. It also has the most up-to-date hours, the most up-to-date times for operation, as well as any special operating procedures. And we launched this in April because people were having to go to anywhere between 8 and 17 websites to find where food resources were available, or either troll social media so that they could see when's going to be available, what's going to be available when. And so we have only been able to accomplish this because of tremendous volunteers across the state. Auburn University and University of Alabama partnered on this one. We've had a lot of University of Alabama student programs, like their Masters of Social Work students, have contributed numerous hours. We've also worked with Alabama Extension with their county presence in every county. They've been a tremendous resource too. So we've secured more than 10,000 volunteer hours to keep this updated on a weekly basis. And that's something that we will keep going. We won't keep it updated on a weekly basis as things with COVID hopefully at some point start to slow. But this resource guide will always be available on our website and maintained to a degree that's appropriate given the situation. This is our coalition for our 10 partnering universities here in the state of Alabama, focused on right now campus food insecurity, but we will be expanding to housing, financial insecurity, and everything in between that may support college students in having the basic needs they need in order to focus on their studies, to focus on persisting, and to focus on graduating. And so we are so excited to have the funding that we have from ECMC Foundation. I've brought quite a few researchers on board that can look at anything from quantitative to qualitative, to how students are accessing resources, to what resources are available, to mini grants that we're going to be able to give each university to try out something new to address basic needs. And so this has been an incredible group to work with. We have a particular process that we're following with these 10 universities so that we can then scale it to other communities. And this is the particular coalition that will be expanding to the community colleges, hopefully next week. We had conversations with them in January, and then we all know what happened in March. And so things slowed a bit because they had to focus on pivoting to online instruction. So as I mentioned, we support 10 Alabama colleges and universities. And then lastly, with Hunger Free Auburn, with Committee of 19 that Harriet launched and led for some time, with the capstone class in hunger launching campus kitchens, with now having a global studies student in the College of Human Sciences elected as SGA president. We are really gaining a lot of traction on Auburn's campus to address hunger. And so HSI has supported the development of a plan to determine how all these different groups can work together to end hunger forever at Auburn. And of course, y'all could probably recite the creed and so many places that this could fit in there. And so we are excited to continue our work here at Auburn and take it to the next level with many of our leaders on campus. And Gwen, I saw you on with dining services, being such a leader on campus too with the Nutrition Resource Center that HSI is supporting in its design and development. So there's a lot of stuff happening on campus, and we are so excited to engage with it and help to pull it all those pieces together and make sure we all know what's going on so we don't duplicate. So how do we get all of this done? I thought I would show you some behind the scenes. Susan Hubbard, the Dean of the College of Human Sciences, serves as our executive director, and I serve as the managing director and the lone standing one full-time equivalent for HSI that tries to manage this work. We do have a board that we engage for strategic direction. And then I mentioned Kate Thornton a few times. She also provides some research and academic support. She has tremendous knowledge in global studies and the international hunger realm. And so with my background in domestic hunger, we make a pretty good team to cover as many areas as we can. I am excited to say, with pulling in some grant dollars, I completed with the search committee 4 interviews this week for our next full-time equivalent, which will be focused on communications and marketing. I mentioned I am a true researcher, so I am not the best at telling our story to a wide range of partners and stakeholders. And so I'm excited when Susan said, okay, you've got some grant dollars. What's the first position? I said, I need a communications and marketing person. I'm not creative. And so that's why this PowerPoint looks this way. And the announcement for this session looked so much better. I almost stole the colors and everything and made my presentation mimic it, but that wouldn't have been very, very ethical probably. With grant funding, we are able to have graduate students. I have 2 that are half-time right now that are just the life stream for a lot of the work that happens. We have very dynamic graduate students that I use more as colleagues than as graduate students. And I just tell them, most grad students aren't going to have this opportunity. So I just want to get you as much experience as you possibly can have during your graduate school days. And so they take it on and do enjoy every part of it. And so we work well together as a team. And then I mentioned the fellows, and we have some student workers and some interns that are undergraduate and graduate interns. So we've pulled together a really fun team. There's not a lot of people on campus, but we've been back on campus since the start of school. The students said very vocally that they were ready to get back together. And so they're all masked and socially distanced in our suite. And sometimes we are a little too loud for Quiet Spital when nobody's here. So if you're in the building, you might hear the noise coming from the third floor. It's us having a little bit too much fun with the work that we're doing, but we have a great team. As far as our funding, I know that was one of the questions that came in. We are funded partially through the College of Human Sciences and the Alabama Agricultural Experiment Station. One of my priorities has been to pull in additional grant dollars so that I could expand our team to provide even more activity and greater support to faculty research and student engagement. And then we've also started working with the new development director, Michelle McBride, in pulling in some gifts. We were able to get a gift from Kroger last year and hope to continue that and hope to expand that as well. And our expenses, we try to keep them as low as possible. So we do have personnel expenses. We have myself, and then I mentioned Roger as a scholar in residence, and we have our grad students, and then we have faculty stipends for the faculty doing research. I count my pennies for operating costs, and not being able to travel has helped loosen up a little bit. And then we do like to have reserve, and June and Harriet were so wonderful to build a nice reserve for us to depend on, particularly as grants were not able to come in, or even as gifts get slower. And so we do try to keep a nice reserve for the rough years. So that's a very quick, I kind of did the fire hose approach with you guys. I hope you're not too overwhelmed or dizzy at this point. But that's a quick sneak at what we do with HSI. I know some of the questions were focused on how can you help? And I really want to encourage you to get engaged locally. Just as Harriet said, she serves on the board for the East Alabama Food Bank. There are regional food banks across the state and nation. Get involved in campuses. There's a lot of work happening on college campuses and on K-12 campuses around food insecurity. I work with a food pantry that's in a K-12 school and working to see how that works and how we can expand it. There's plenty of backpack programs here in Auburn. Jason Duffner Foundation leads one of the really strong backpack programs, but they're throughout the state and nation as well. So there's many ways to get engaged. And then in addition to the short-term actions, it's always important to think long-term. And we like to say every policy is a hunger policy, just like every discipline is a hunger discipline. And so as you work, some of you may be elected officials or advocates in the community, always think about hunger as you are contemplating environmental changes or systems changes in your industry, or even policies that are made at the local, state, and national level. So I'm going to be quiet and let you guys provide any responses or ask any questions that you have.
All I can say, Alicia, is incredible work. I just never cease to be amazed at all that you are doing and your team, and the sky's the limit, and just making such an impact on every level.
Great, thanks, Harriet. It's a fun thing to do.
Hey, Alicia, it's Brittany. I have a question for you. So when I think for a lot of us, when we talk to our friends and family members and community members about hunger in our own communities, many of them don't either believe it or don't understand. What is a quick anecdote or fact that you would share to get the importance of this issue across?
Yeah, great question, Brittany. And I almost showed a very short video. It's like a 1-minute video of it's child hunger and what does it look like? Especially now, it doesn't look like what you think it does. It's not the most impoverished. It is the most impoverished, but it's not only the most impoverished, I guess I should say. So oftentimes there's different types of hunger: chronic hunger, acute hunger, hidden hunger, and short-term hunger. Most of you may be experiencing short-term hunger. I know I haven't had lunch, so that's not our concern with HSI. But hidden hunger, Brittany, to answer your question, is a great concern here in the U.S. I'll confess, I am a public health nutritionist, and so much of my work is the juxtaposition between obesity and hunger. And so whereas you may look at many kids here in the U.S. and they look as if they're well fed, they are still, there's hidden hunger because they might not be receiving the micronutrients that's needed. So what you often see in international hunger is macronutrient hunger. But what you often see here in the US is micro, so things like vitamins and minerals, and just not getting the appropriate quality of food. And so I think as far as an antidote, you always hear, and I'll try not to cry when I say this because I can't talk about kids and not get upset, but you always hear of like the kindergartner who goes and picks up his little bag to take home for the weekend and has to figure out how to ration it to make it to Monday. And so that's what it is. And when schools closed, we had major problems. And so those cafeteria workers jumping in was incredible because those kids, when they don't go to school, they don't get fed. And so, sorry, I'll clean it up now. But that's what it looks like here in the States. And I have a 6-year-old, so I can kind of think about my 4th grader coming home with a bag of food because I can't provide for him. That's what it looks like in the U.S. In Africa, it's farmers that are growing food that can't feed themselves. And Roger Thoreau talks about what an oxymoron that is, that people who actually grow food cannot feed themselves. They can't grow enough to feed themselves. And so it all looks very different. And I think it's important for us to keep our eyes wide open or our mouths tightly shut and to really try to feel what most people are feeling, particularly the kids. And that's why I'm so appreciative of June and Harriet starting In Child Hunger in Alabama, because it is focused on child hunger, which is, if you go to a few of the maps that I show you, you'll see that Alabama is one of the top on the list for child hunger. And so there's plenty of very nice journal articles that do a really good job at describing what the kids are feeling like. One of them was crying because she was late to school because she had missed breakfast. So it's a lot to take in. Thanks for your question, Brittany.
Thank you so much. That was perfect. And I'm really looking forward to sharing that example of macro with some folks, because I think that hit the nail on the head. Thank you so much.
Yes.
And thank you for all you do. I'm so inspired by you.
Oh, well, I'm just a little Alabama girl trying to do some things. So I'm appreciative to Harriet and June for giving a platform for me to jump and go with it. And it's a big team happening across the university and the state. So it's just fun for me to be the blazer of the trail.
Alicia, following up on that, I think, again, even the Alliance to End Hunger, which is a national alliance out of Washington, D.C., made up of corporations, huge nonprofits like Feeding America, small nonprofits, individuals, universities, which Auburn represents the university community on that alliance. And Alicia's given me the honor of continuing to represent the alliance and serve on its board of directors. And just talk about college hunger, because even within the Alliance to End Hunger, where supposedly the hunger experts are gathered, people were shocked that there was hunger on college campuses. And when we first, Kate Thornton started looking at campus hunger at Auburn, and I thought, here we are sending students out to volunteer in the community, and yet so many of them were experiencing food insecurity in their own right. And so would you expand on that a little bit? Because I still think people sometimes don't get that there is a tremendous amount of food insecurity across the board, across the U.S. and especially our junior colleges and community and urban centers.
Yeah, of course. And I think that also gets to the picture that Brittany's painting of the different populations that face hunger and what they look like and how it feels. What we've seen on Auburn's campus is 27% of students are food insecure. So that's more than 1 in 4. And what you would expect to be the demography is not always what the demography is. A lot of times the ways we ask questions around food and even housing insecurity is not, do you have enough food, but it's what types of food. And so when Kate talks about this, she talks about a student going by Starbucks and picking up sugar packets so that she could make sugar water and drink it so that it would last a little bit longer, so that she could study a little bit more. When you talk about homelessness in the college population, a lot of times you ask about couch surfing. And right now with the COVID situation, we're seeing an increase in couch surfing, of where they'll just stay from friend to friend to friend house. And with cases and quarantines as they are on some college campuses, that becomes a greater risk factor for testing positive. And so the look of hunger on college campuses can be very diverse. We do see it if you look into community colleges. We see it in more of the non-traditional students, single-headed households who have children at home. So we have we're trying to get certain policies in place to do better connectivity with community colleges and workforce development and different programmings that can provide support as they move through the schooling. And then the same thing here at Auburn, we're looking at policies that can be put into place. I know one example, Kate helped, and Gwen's on here, helped to shift some of the meal vouchers to where it wasn't just a retail focus, it also could be a cafeteria focus, so that students could go in with one swipe and eat more than just buying a meal with a certain amount of dollars. And so it looks very different on college campuses. And so the policies and the programs to support its eradication look different too. And it is, as Harriet said, it's a very new area. Hunger's been around for centuries, campus hunger has been around for centuries, but just over the past decade has it become more of a major topic. If this is a topic of interest to you, I highly recommend the Government Accountability Office put out a report about a year ago that provides a really in-depth look at campus hunger. And so we're excited to be one of the leaders across the country in addressing this. And it's in Alabama. And not having a system for colleges and universities here at 4 years has really set us apart, because the UC system's done some stuff, SUNY's done some stuff, and I'm like, you guys have an unfair advantage. We're going to do it across the biggest rivalry in the nation, right? So we are blazing trails in the campus hunger realm, and there's still a lot to learn.
You will be, all of you that obviously affiliated with Auburn, will be so proud to know that Auburn is truly highly regarded among the experts and professionals in the hunger space in Washington, D.C. I mean, our reputation is stellar. They look to Auburn to be the lead university in the hunger movement. And so it's to know, to go to these meetings and to hear people that I admire, my hunger heroes, talk about what Auburn University has done and is doing is just very humbling and just amazing that Auburn has, garnered this reputation. Not amazing, we put the work in, but again, it's not just locally that we're known, it is across the board, nationally and internationally.
Yeah. And one example of that is the minor. We were one of the first to have a minor, and now there's quite a few that have used our hunger studies minor to design theirs on their campuses.
Alicia, I've heard from different sources that there is not a problem with the amount of food, that there's plenty of food being produced in the world to feed everyone. It's a problem with access. And logistics. So could you talk to that point?
Sure. Yeah, of course. There is a bit of a concern with the growing population that and the shifts in agricultural production, if we can keep up. But yeah, currently there is plenty of food to feed everyone that's needed. But that food being in the right place at the right time and in the right way is where we are having the causes of hunger. And so if you look at things like international hunger, you start to see where climate, so droughts that have happened historically for centuries, really influence that acute hunger that then over time becomes chronic hunger. And a lot of that is with the infrastructure, the governmental influence, both external and internal, the corruption. But then also, of course, there's policies. And then as the world has globalized, it's brought about some positives and some negatives too. And then the same thing here in the U.S. I'll confess, you guys, I'm a public health nutritionist. So I've done a lot of work in the area of what food's available in very impoverished places. And it's very cheap, very unhealthy foods. That's what they can access. And so it's no surprise that we face hidden hunger because that's what is available. That's what's advertised. That's what's promoted. And so I've done a lot of work in trying to establish farmers markets in many of the local communities here in Alabama so that farmers have an outlet for direct sales. But also the communities have an outlet to purchase reasonably priced fresh fruits and vegetables. Done quite a bit of work on incentivizing fruit and vegetable purchases. So yes, there's plenty of food. There's this question of not just availability. So is the food there, but accessibility? Is it at the right price point? Is it in the right place? Is it culturally appropriate? And so there's so many layers to it. But yeah, we have plenty of food. It's just trying to get it all to the right place at the right time and in the right way. Other questions? We're getting close to the end of the hour. Kim, I saw your question. It's gone up in my, how do less affluent counties in Alabama address hunger? That's a hard one. There are food banks. So as Harriet mentioned, we have regional food banks. And so we have a West Alabama food bank that provides services to a lot of the Black Belt counties that are some of our most impoverished areas here in the state. Feeding the Gulf Coast, I could not sing their praises enough. They are a food bank in the south part of the state that does absolutely astonishing, innovative work. School food. I'm working on a campaign with the Alabama State Department of Ed to promote school lunches and school breakfast and really finding ways to have non-traditional breakfast in the classroom, breakfast after the bell. And then there's many organizations in the state that can provide at-risk youth after-school snacks and suppers. Not dinners, but suppers. That's always an interesting caveat. So there are plenty of programs, both locally funded, state funded, and federally funded. And there are a ton of charitable organizations that are doing the best they can. But to be honest, we are going to have to address population shifts and workforce development and economic development for them to really be able to pull themselves out. So I toss on different hats. And I think that's what makes Hunger Solutions Institute so fun is I can go talk to economists, but then I can go talk to workforce development offices with the governor's office, or I can go talk to classes about macro and micronutrients. So yeah, I think it's going to take a comprehensive approach. And I think that's a good way to end because that's exactly what HSI wants to do is we don't want to have a hunger expert. I'm not a hunger expert. Harriet's not a hunger expert. I'm a public health nutritionist who looks through a lens of hunger. She's a human development family studies specialist who looks through the lens of hunger. And that's what we really want everyone to do. Gwen, I would say she's not a hunger expert, but she's a dining services administrator who looks through the lens of hunger. And so that's what we really want to do. And that's the only way we're going to be able to eradicate hunger.
My husband has come home for lunch. He has asked me to ask you the question as he sits here listening to this program. He handed me this article about volunteers gleaning local farms for leftover produce to combat hunger, and wants to know if there's something like that in this area.
There is. It's called Society of St. Andrews. And that's another place that you can get engaged with, a tremendous organization, and really have helped. They glean from gardens, they glean from fields, and now they glean from farmers markets. So oftentimes farmers will go sit all day at farmers markets and still have a little bit of produce, and it's not going to be good for the next time the farmers market comes around. And so Society of St. Andrews gleans from there too. Their headquarters is in Birmingham, but they do have sites all across the state. And it is a great way to get involved in the fight against hunger too. So yeah, it happens on a daily basis and throughout the year too. You would be surprised at all the different crops that can be grown in the state of Alabama throughout the year.
That's cool. That's great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do we have any more questions? All right. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to turn it over to Kim to close us out.
Yes, thank you, Alicia, so much. We really appreciate you sharing your time with us today. And I knew about HSI, but I really feel like now I have a better understanding of all the different programs. So thank you. We want to invite any of you to participate in some upcoming programs that we have. Next Thursday, we have the Alabama Women's Commission. It's going to tell us about the work that they're doing throughout the state. 2 weeks from now, we're going to have a presentation on the Alabama Girls Ranch. And 3 weeks from now, we're going to have a presentation on Auburn's Arboretum and the programs and work that they do there. So I hope that you'll plan on joining us. And please keep up with us on our Facebook page. That's where we make sure that we have all of our programs listed. And also, if you've missed anything, you can get caught up on our YouTube channel, which is aub.ie/WPB YouTube. And we will have this program uploaded in the next day or so as well. But thank you again for participating. Thank you, Alicia, for presenting. Harriet, for being with us and sharing your insight. And thank y'all so much. We'll see you next time.
Hi.
Thank you, Harriet.
Thank you. Hi. Great to see everybody.
Harriet, it's awesome to see you, buddy.
Great to see you, Sid. Your picture anyway. miss everyone.
Yeah, we miss everybody.
I do. Oh, bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.